How to cope with the violent murder of my M/32 ex-boyfriend, M/33, guilt and disturbing mental imagery. Anyone experience a similar thing? Hi, I'm not sure if this is the place for this, but I will try. I don't normally disclose my personal life online, and I am generally a very private person who does not reach out for support on personal matters. I usually reserve it for my therapist, but I am not able to see her for a few days. I am just wondering if anyone else has ever dealt with a similar situation and how they got through it. I don't want to get into too many details here, but last night, I, M/32 / found out that my ex-boyfriend, M/33 when he died / was violently murdered a couple of years ago. We are gay, if that matters. He was murdered by the boyfriend he had after me in a very violent and vicious manner. I carry tremendous guilt based on some of the things I said to him during heated arguments and the fact that I blocked him from contacting me when he wanted to continue being in my life after we broke up. Complicated story. One of the last things he said to me was that I must hate him because I was blocking him. I didn't hate him, quite the opposite, but I knew if we continued speaking it would devolve into an unhealthy situation like it did many times before in the past. I thought it was best that we went our separate ways. Of course, there's much more to all of this, but the general gist of it is that I feel like if I had stayed with him and worked things out he wouldn't have been killed, or if I had kept talking to him as a friend after we broke up I could have at least helped warn him of red flags with his new boyfriend who killed him. I can't stop imagining his violent murder in vivid detail, many details of which I read in news reports, and it rips my heart out to think of somebody I loved fighting for his life and having such horrible pain and last moments on this earth. I wish I was there to protect him and keep him safe. I feel I should have been there for him. He had many problems, and he was by no means perfect, but there was a lot of goodness in him. He worked in a selfless profession, giving up money to make a difference. He was only in his very early 30s when he was killed and had his whole life left to live. I can't even visit him in the cemetery because he's buried so far away. I'm not religious, but I said a prayer directly to him with my thoughts and feelings as a last-ditch effort to let him know I did love him and that I'm sorry if anything I did or said led to his death in an indirect way. I would appreciate any input from anyone who has dealt with a situation like this. Please know that I will not comment any more details in public comments as I am very private. It is hard for me to even post this publicly. Please direct message me instead if possible. Too long didn't read. My ex-boyfriend was violently murdered and I am struggling with how to come to terms with guilt and disturbing mental imagery surrounding our relationship and his death. I would like input from anyone who has been in a similar situation, preferably through a private message. You had absolutely no hand in this, and I think you should reach out to a therapist or a help group to deal with the guilt you feel. I'm so sorry for this whole situation. I can't even imagine. My boyfriend and his family lost his sister/daughter when she was young, and it still affects them deeply. I've always told them that the love you have for someone never disappears, even with death. All of that love and care you felt for each other still exists, and because of that, a piece of him will always be with you. Sometimes the best way to honor someone is to do what you did. Say a little prayer and remind them that you cared. Speak to him, metaphorically, about great times you shared and how you treasure it. Don't let his life and the wonderful things he did be overshadowed by his death. Good luck, friend. I hope your heart heals in time, heart. It's not the same, but I found my mother dead. I was doing DoorDash and I left for one last job of the night. She was absolutely fine, playing with her dog before I got back and she was gone. I'll never know if she was sleeping or dead before I left. I'll never know if she died while I was there and could have done something, or I let her die on her own by leaving. I'll never know if I could have saved her. Other than therapy, I am actively still dealing with these feelings years later. I feel guilt that I let her die, and I feel guilt that I let her die alone. But I can say that eventually these feelings lessen. It's been a bit over a year, and I don't think about it as much. Sometimes something will happen that will remind me of her and I can smile and remember her alive without seeing the body happy again. Other times I have a flashback and everything hurts just as bad as it did that night. I know objectively that it isn't my fault she died. Just like it wasn't your fault your ex died. It's a form of survivor's guilt that we carry, and it's something that time and therapy will hopefully fix for us. If nothing else, you aren't alone. I can relate a little to your situation. Please take care and cry when you need. Write a letter to him to help pour out your feelings. I wish you peace, homie. I'm going to keep this brief, but last year I had an ex reach out to me to go for coffee and talk, and I declined. Within weeks he killed himself. I hold on to that and blame myself a hell of a lot. I think because we're all the main characters in our story, we all think we could have saved someone at some point, but life's just not like that. Try not to let it affect other parts of your life. For example, I had thrown out all the photos of that ex. Yesterday my friend came over and said, "Why do you still have photos of most recent ex?" And without thinking I said, one day he might die, and I might have nothing left of him, and as soon as it came out I knew how unhealthy it was. One more box to unpack in therapy. So yeah, things like that, try not to overthink it. Know that it's a normal part of being human and processing. Definitely see a therapist or counselor to talk through the guilt, because although it'll never get rid of it, it will lessen it and help. Thank you for this. I will certainly take it to heart. I am sorry for your struggle. Not a romantic relationship, but I had a very close friend growing up. She was like a sister to me. We had at one point planned a life together, being roommates, travel, things we wanted to do outside our small town. Then she got a boyfriend, got jealous. I was rude to him and basically made her choose between us. She, like many teen girls, chose the boy. I cut all contact with her and moved away not long after, not even speaking to her. About a year after I graduated high school I found out she died. Her boyfriend got her into drugs. She got hooked on heroin, and the truth about her death is disputed. Some people said it was suicide, others say he killed her. He was apparently extremely abusive. The guilt I felt was overwhelming because I knew if I had stayed in touch she would have asked me for help, or at least that's how I felt. I don't really know. For many years I had nightmares about her death. Felt a huge amount of guilt. I was never able to visit her grave, but I did visit a tree one of her family members planted in her memory. I also sometimes talk to her the way we used to talk and think about the type of advice she would have given me. I also keep her memory alive by sharing stories about her and our childhood adventures with others. I rarely speak of her death because I'd like people to remember her joyful side. This has helped me a lot because I feel like I'm keeping her memory well. I'm so sorry. What a horrible thing to have to envision and live with. Obviously, this wasn't your fault, and you never know what would have happened if you'd remained friends. You can't let what ifs drive you to insanity. Have you thought about reaching out to a grief or trauma therapist? Maybe a support group? I don't have experience with this situation, but years ago my BFF drowned after I encouraged him to go swimming the night. And the guilt and what ifs drove me crazy for years before I was able to let it go. My wife had an affair, says she might want to leave me. This is a repost from relationship_advice, but I still need help with this. I live in a medium-sized town in Central Europe and have 2 kids, one kindergarten age and one in primary school. My wife and I have been together for approximately 15 years by now. We are both mid-30s. One day after Christmas, my wife sent the kids to her parents and told me she needed to tell me something. Then she confessed that she has had an affair with a priest from our local parish. This had been going on for 2 months, but she claimed that she had actually loved him from afar for 2 years. Naturally, I had not noticed anything. Now, the nasty details: it was in fact the priest, not her, who first told her that he loved her. He did so upon the advice of a coach working for the church. He is 20 years older than her. He is also married, several children living in his household. They had sex 3 times, once in our house while I was in my office and twice elsewhere while I was watching the kids, which my wife had asked me to do because she needed some time for herself. She claims she loves the man more than she has ever loved me. She told me only when the wife of the priest had already found out about it, and it was only a matter of time before she would inform me. Even then, she withheld information and I repeatedly caught her lying about important details. We did not break up immediately afterwards, because I love her dearly and feel a strong responsibility to our two small children. Their tiny world would shatter if their parents broke up. So, there was a lot of arguing, shouting and some broken porcelain. But eventually we decided to move on and try to revive our relationship. So did the priest and his wife. The first days afterwards were very good, even so good that she called them a second honeymoon. She was very relieved that I decided to swallow the pain and continue with her. And she enjoyed to see that I immediately changed the things that she had criticized on me, and which according to her statements were responsible for her loving me less and for falling in love with the priest. She also promised to change some of her behavior and did so. We've been speaking days and nights and are both quite drained by now. However, the more time passes, the more detached is she becoming of me. First she claimed she was lovesick from having to part with her lover priest. Then she claimed our relationship had been broken long before she fell in love with that priest, which had been an escape and cry for help. She also said that I had hurt her too often, and that she was surprised that I say that I still love her. Regarding her injuries, we argued a lot, and I am someone who can say unpleasant things in a very blunt and aggressive way, which indeed tends to hurt people. I do however usually not resort to swearing, and I would never hit a woman. Basically her injuries were disagreements where I refused to give in. Most of them about small things such as evening plans, but these arguments often ended in tears. I am also someone who works a lot in an office job, so I was often not at home or, if I was, mentally absent because I was too tired or simply could not make myself interested in the stories she told, which were often about people I barely know, or about the same problems that she had told me about before. She is someone who tends to lament over problems instead of resolving them. I personally had recognized that we had problems, but was far from seeing our relationship as broken. In fact I was, in balance, quite happy. During the last few days, she has now told me that she never loved me as much as I love her, and that she did often not like it when I was close to her, or even in the house. This is the reason why she often avoided me, sexually and in other matters. This had started about 7 years ago. When she told me, I immediately recognized what she meant. She indeed has been acting like this for a long time. However, she had always claimed that it was my fault because I was too pushy. Our current situation is that she will now speak to a family counselor to find out what she wants. I'm supposed to wait until she takes that decision and or make up my own mind. I do not want to lose her though, and hate that she tells me that I should think about this. I am completely devastated by now. 2 weeks ago I was living a seemingly good life with a great family. Now all I have is a pile of shards. I still love my wife, even if I struggle to find good reasons for it after all that happened. I can't bear to think of what would happen to the kids if we split. And I have non-stop violence fantasies about that fucking priest. The worst part of it is that the circumstances make it quite likely that she would take the kids for most of the time, which would make me a weekend dad. I detest this thought. It is like being subjected to the worst parts of being a dad while not getting the parts that are so magical, and both today I fucked up. At this point I seek your advice on how to save my marriage and family. Any advice on how to seriously fuck this priest over, legally, is also welcome. Thanks. Too long didn't read. My wife had an affair with a priest, and now defends herself by claiming that our relationship had been broken long before. Feel like my 29 FBF 32 meters assaulted me. I told my BF that I'd like to take things slow sexually, but on a date he started snuggling and fondling. I'm okay with snuggling, but fondling and pinching was much for me. I was too shocked to say much, but I felt like I couldn't trust him to be alone with him. I was not ready to be touched like that and did give him many hints before. I told him this and he's hurt. I felt like this was a violation of my boundaries. I do like him, but I don't get his constant obsession to touch me. Too long didn't read. My boyfriend, long distance relationship, doesn't seem to understand me. He keep pushing my limits.